The word courage comes from core, which comes from the heart.
Heart.
If you look at the etymology, it means heart. So the more we start to open up and realize that each has an individual and every one of those are parts of us that we may not be loving. And if we can love it, we can encompass that. Then we will care enough about them to articulate respectfully what we're up to in terms of their values. And the very people that normally would give us resistance, as long as we're helping them fulfill what they would want, they open up the doors for us to fulfill it. So ignorance is pursuing something that's not obtainable and trying to get rid of the unavoidable. And people who set goals that are fantasies, not goals that are true objectives, have a one-sided goal where they think they're going to get an advantage without the disadvantage, where they're going to get a reward without the risk, they're going to get a positive without the negative. And there's necessary to have both. Many people confuse the ecstatic, manic episode of a high dopamine with the flow state. A flow state is poised, present, purposeful, patient, productive, prioritized, and powerful.
I'm about to have a conversation with a polymath and a world-renowned human behavior expert. Dr. John Demartini is an internationally published author, a global educator, and the founder of the Demartini Method, a revolutionary tool in modern psychology. He's authored over 40 self-development books and manuscripts, including his bestseller, The Breakthrough Experience, which has been translated into over 36 languages, as well as adapted into his signature program, which is delivered globally to over 100,000 students so far. And it doesn't stop there. He's produced over 100 audio and video online courses and products covering subjects such as wealth building, the body-mind connection, powerful business insights, accessing your 7 greatest powers, conscious intention, and many more. John Demartini's mission and vision is to share knowledge and wisdom that empowers you to become a master of your own life and destiny. I'm super excited to be having this conversation with Dr. Demartini on the Self-Discovery channel today. Good morning, Dr. Demartini. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited. I've wanted to have you on my channel now for so long because many of my friends have done your program and several times. So it's just great to have you here today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I was looking forward to it.
So as I was saying, I would love to tap your knowledge, your wisdom with regards to what it means to live our absolute best life. And when we're talking about mind mastery, can we begin by your definition of what mind mastery actually is?
When I was 18 years old, I already knew when I was 17 that I wanted to travel the world and be a teacher. I saw that in a vision when I was 17. And at 18, I was sitting at my parents' house in a lotus position, doing yoga in front of a television, watching David Carradine on Kung Fu. It was a TV show. And he had the Shaolin master that he referred to, which was his master. I think they nicknamed him Grasshopper. And every time he talked about his master, I always thought, wow, I would love to master my life. I would love to master I'd like to be a master. When you're 18, it sounds sort of surreal and, great. So I started in a pursuit to want to know, how do I master my life and what exactly does that mean? I then decided that I was going to divide life into 7 areas: our spiritual quest, our path of our inspired mission, our mental quest, the contribution we can make, creating original ideas, innovative, creative, original ideas that serve human beings. My business quest, I wanted to create a global company that was involved in teaching. My financial quest, I wanted to be able to work, not because I had to, but because I loved to, because I had more than abundance of money taking care of things. I wanted to have a family that was global. The world was home, not localized, but globalized, non-local. I wanted to have social influence and meet amazing people, hang out with amazing people, get to hang out with people that do extraordinary things across the world and have influence. I would have a vital body. I'm 69 almost. And so I'm still got more energy than most people. And
they said to me, you've been on a 2-week tour. You've had a non-stop 2 weeks of teaching. Is that correct? Seminars?
Yeah, I just finished day before yesterday, 2 weeks. Amazing. But I 14 hours a day, I go all day. And so that was my idea of mastery, was the empowerment of all areas of life, because any area of our life we don't empower, other people overpower. And the overpowerment is there to kind of frustrate us to go and empower those areas of our life. When people are looking in relationships, when I've asked thousands of women whether you're looking for a guy, they say, I'm looking for somebody that's fit. I'm looking for somebody that's intelligent. I'm looking for somebody that's got ambition. I'm looking for somebody that's got some resources. I'm looking for somebody that really desires me. I'm looking for somebody that's got social savvy. I'm looking for somebody that's inspired. They're the same areas. So that was my idea. Mastery is the giving yourself permission to live authentically according to what you value and have most meaningfulness about most. That is truly highest in priority that you fill your day with on a daily basis, and surrounding yourself with people around you that would love to do the things you want to delegate. So you're liberated to do what you really love doing, your core competence, and empower all those areas in the pursuit of it. To me, that would be a masterful life.
Amazing, amazing. So you know, values, you come down to values quite heavily, which is something actually over the course of my own journey of transformation, I've actually realized that people have values. They do have values. It's not that they haven't got values. It's just that a lot of the times the values that they live to are not necessarily distinguished, and that they may be somebody else's. They may have adopted those values. Would you say that would you tend to agree with that?
Every human being, regardless of age, gender spectrum, or culture, lives moment by a set of priorities, a set of values that are unique to them. When they're living by the highest values, they tend to have spontaneous action to fulfill them. When they're trying to live in lower values, they need motivation, incentives, and some sort of extrinsic motivation and reminding to do it. What stops people from living congruently, authentically, according to what inspires them spontaneously, is the comparison of ourselves to other people. And the moment we put people on a pedestal and think they're more intelligent, more business savvy, more wealthy, more stable relationship, more socially connected, more physically fit, or more spiritually aware, the moment we subordinate to them and are too humble to admit what we see in them inside us and exaggerate them and minimize us, we will inject some of their values into our life, cloud the clarity of our own highest value, and then scatter ourselves and distract ourselves trying to be inauthentic and living in the shadows of others instead of living on the shoulders of giants and shining and doing something extraordinary.
Yeah. So rather than be inspired and realize that actually they are reflecting back to us something that we aspire to, that we have within ourselves, that we should really express, make it into a self-expression, it turns into
Perfect.
something else, which drags you down with envy, jealousy, or whatever that might be for people. There's this fear of something that keeps them rooted into a place where they can't actually achieve what it is that they really crave to achieve.
The moment values in society go from those who have the most power to those that have least power. So the people at the top, they live by design. The people at the bottom live by duty. So we project values down, we inject values from above. So anytime we put people above us, we're going to cloud the clarity of our own mission. And anytime we put them in our heart and don't put above us or below us, we wake up our mission, because no matter what we see in others is a reflection of us. When we're too humble to admit what we see in them inside us, the truth is we have it, or we wouldn't admire them, but we're too humble to admit it. Just like if we resent somebody, they're only reminding us of something we have that we're ashamed of, that we're dissociating from and covering it up with pride. But we have everything we see in people. I'm the hero villain. I've got everything. So when you finally have reflective awareness, pure reflective awareness liberates people from the bondage of the infatuations and resentments that occupy space and time in people's minds, and scatter them and distract them from their pure presence and their capacity to do something extraordinary. So we have a natural tendency to want to do something amazing and very inspired, but our comparisons, by the law of contrast, we compare ourselves. And instead of comparing ourselves to others and putting people on pedestals of pits, it's wiser to compare our daily actions to our own highest values and put people in our hearts.
Very interesting. So what I've noticed is that often all of those things that you just mentioned, when we actually see someone doing the things that we would actually love to do, sometimes it turns into an internal dialogue, which is not very helpful, and that limits you from actually doing all the things that you want to do.
The key is also making sure that whenever you are looking at somebody, they have a different set of values. And anytime you try to live in other people's values, you're going to self-defeat. Anybody who's in a coupled relationship, if they self-righteously think their values are right and they project them down onto somebody else and try to get them to live in their values, they're going to get castrated. They're going to find out it doesn't work. They're going to find out that that's futile. And if they're also the underdog, minimizing themselves, expecting to live in the other person's values, they're only going to build up resentment until they finally stand up, until they find a match. When they actually have an equality, they don't try to fix each other's values. They communicate communicate what they value in terms of the other individual's values and help other people get what they want by giving themselves what they want. And if they do, then there's a loving communication, dialogue, not alternating monologues.
Beautiful. And also you can actually adopt each other's values, which so I find in my relationship with my husband is that the things that he brought into the relationship that he valued and that I value separately, he seems to have gravitated towards those and adopted them, and vice versa. And so it's like really broadened our perspectives in ways that otherwise that wouldn't have happened. We could have just said, no, I don't believe in that, or I don't like that, I'm not going to explore that. That's your thing. And then we don't really get to go very far in evolving ourselves and also aligning ourselves with each other.
Inclusiveness takes us farther than exclusiveness.
That's very true. It's so true. Yes. So I do want to talk a little bit more about getting clear about values slightly later in the conversation. But I wanted to ask you, while we're talking about mind mastery and you define what mind mastery actually is for you, or mastery is for you, what I would like to know is, what should we focus on? What should we not focus on? What should we focus on in order that we can actually get really, we in our lifetime can actually have that experience of being a master of our own mind?
Well, I take out the got tos, have tos, must, shoulds, ought tos, supposed tos, and need tos, first of all. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to or should do something because I say so. I want them to live authentically where they're doing something they really love to do. So first, determining what their values are would be the wisest thing, and take a look at what their life demonstrates. Your life demonstrates what you value because your hierarchy of values is dictating how you perceive, how you decide, and how you act. So your perception, decisions, and actions, which are the only three things you have control over, are run by your values. You're filtering your reality according to them. You're making decisions and based on what you think is going to give the greatest advantage over disadvantage at that moment, and you're taking actions. So first, defining what the values are. On my little website, there's a complimentary private value determination process. I hope that people can take advantage of that. It's free, it's private. Going through 13 questions that are demonstrable of what their life really demonstrates, not the fantasies, not the things they think it should be, not the things they envy, but what does their life demonstrate that they value most? First, being honest and integral with what's true. So you can set goals that are congruent with that. There's only going to be two ways of having fulfillment, either setting goals and objectives that align congruently with what your hierarchy of values are, or there's an art of shifting values to match the goals you seek. But if you set a goal that's not matching values, you'll have internal conflict. And this is so common, it happens. People envy somebody, they go, oh, I want to do that. And they don't have the values that will lead them there. I've asked people, millions of people, how many want to be financially independent? And every hand goes up, sometimes two hands, sometimes a leg goes up too in the air. And I said, fantastic. How many of you are financially independent? All the hands go down, except a handful. And I go, isn't it interesting? Everybody here has a hand up for wanting to be financially independent. But I assure you, after doing value determination on millions of people, less than 1% of the world's population actually truly has the value that will lead them to wealth building, because they have fantasies of spending money on consumables that depreciate in value. And as long as they have a higher value on spending it on those things, instead of buying assets that work for them and build passive income, they're going to be working against their objective. So many people say, I want to have a financial independent, but their life doesn't demonstrate that's what they really value. They really value, I want that immediate gratification. They don't know how to defer gratification to have money work for them. So when you ask people about what their values are, I've been doing it for 45 years. I assure you, a small percentage of people know what their values are. And I've been doing value determinations all those years. Mm-hmm. Those people live in illusion about what's important to them. Yes. And that's why they have to really do a drone view, magnifying glass on what their life really demonstrates their life is making decisions by. And when they look at that, now they have the power to start setting real goals with real time frames that are reasonable, that are real objectives that match what they really want. Mm.
Interesting. So when I was exploring, like really inquiring, questing, what's my life about? Why have things happened the way that they've happened in my life? And, it took me on this very, very deep journey. And the very first thing that happened in that process was truly listening to that inner voice. Something was talking to me at all times, which I wasn't not cognizant of, because I have to be fair. I'm one of those people since childhood. I've had that voice and I have had it speak to me very loudly at some times and less at other times. But I actually went to confront that, and I thought, well, what would happen if I actually started to ask it questions and see, what would happen? Would it actually answer me? Would I actually get something that's more fulfilling than the things that what I know so far? And this was in my mid-20s. And one of the things I discovered was that actually the only place you can actually get your values by truly listening to that inner voice. Would you agree with that?
Well, there's ways of identifying the true inner voice, not the voices. There's a difference.
Yes.
Because you can be dissociated and have voices like in schizophrenia and bipolar condition.
No, not those.
Those are not the ones I'm talking about.
No.
But the real voice, the voice and the vision on the inside, when it's louder than all opinions on the outside, you master your life. That is a very important distinction. And it usually comes with tears of inspiration, where you have a confirmation of knowing. A gamma synchronicity in the brain occurs, and there's a knowing, an aha, eureka moment that allows you to know that this is something very deeply meaningful. Follow it. That is the wisdom of the ages without the aging process. Now, there are ways identifying what those values are, because I've been doing it 45 years. So that match that. Because when you actually get it through a cognitive process, it matches, you get the same tears. So there's a way of confirming it. But knowing that sixth sense, our intuition is constantly trying to help us get there. Let me give you an example. Let's say you meet somebody on the street and you're attracted to this woman or this man. And at first you're a little bit fooled because you have a bit of an infatuation and you're enamored and you're conscious of the upsides and unconscious of the downsides. Or you meet somebody on the street that you might resent and you're conscious of the downside and unconscious of the upside. And you have an imbalanced amygdala response to seek or avoid, prey or predator. Whenever you do, your intuition is trying to whisper to you the downsides to when you're infatuated, and it's trying to whisper the upsides when you're resentful. It's trying to get you back into loving somebody and seeing both sides so you're mindful. You're not mindful when you're unconscious. So as long as we have an imbalanced perspective, our intuition is attempting to whisper to us the side we're ignoring so we can see both sides, so we can be present with people and love people. We can't love them when we're infatuated. We're blind to the downsides and we'll be smacked by the side we missed. Fatal attraction, like Michael Douglas. And the same thing, resentful. We find out sometimes that people resent later turns out to be the greatest gifts in our life. So the wisdom of the ages without the aging process is learning to trust the intuitions, whispering to guide us to see both sides, to bring us into homeostasis and balance, where we're not run from the extrinsic world, we're actually run from within. And so our authenticity, our intuition is trying to get us into that tier of gratitude moment. It's trying to whisper to us to guide that throughout our life. And if we listen to its admonitions, we have a more fulfilled and more mastery life.
Yes. When it comes to distinguishing values, what kinds of questions do you ask? You said you have to, and I will put a link in, to that questionnaire that you have on your website, by the way, in the description of this video, and anywhere else that people are listening to this, whether it's audio or whatever. I'll try to see if I can find a way of linking, including a link, so that people can go to your website and actually do that values questionnaire and come up with that. That's amazing. So what kind of questions do you include in those, in that questionnaire?
There are 13 primary questions. I've gone through hundreds of different value determination processes over the last 45 years, but I narrowed it down to 13 basic questions.
Wow, just 13. That's amazing.
13 questions. So I'd be glad to go through them if you'd like to.
Yeah, please do.
Every human being has their own private space. They have what is called, in proxemics, they have what is called the intimate space, which is about 1.5 feet. Their personal space, which is about 4 feet. Their social space, which is about 12 feet, and their public space, which goes beyond that. And that study is called proxemics. Anything that they value, they bring into their personal and intimate space. And anything that they devalue, they put away from it. They throw it in the trash to get rid of it. So if somebody comes up to you and gives you something that has zero value, it'll go in the trash, take it away. But if it gives you incredible value, you'll wear it on a ring, you'll keep it next to you on your neck, you'll keep it right where you can see it. Possibly the crystal behind you is valuable. You want it or close to you. Whatever is valuable to you, you want to keep it close within 4 foot reach. So the first value determination is, what do you feel your personal and intimate space with most consistently. So if I was to take a drone and watch you 24 hours a day, wherever you are the most, at home or at work, and look at what is it that's most common thing that you interact with your senses and your motor actions in your personal space, that tells you what you value. That's the first step. Looking objectively at what your life is demonstrating you value and keep close to, because proxemics is a very good indicator of what's valuable to somebody. If you have children that's very valuable, they're always around you. I have a daughter who's a fashion designer, she's got fashion everywhere, clothes, shoes, fashion patterns, fashion magazines, it's right there. In my case, my computer, because I spend 14 hours a day to 16 hours a day on my computer teaching. So it's right there. This is my vehicle.
Right.
So then the second indication is time. We make time, find time, and spend time on things that are valuable to. We run out of time, don't want to spend time, and can't find time for things that aren't. So we can bullshit ourselves, excuse the expression. We can lie to ourselves that if we really don't want to do it, we find reasons not to do it. We don't have time for it. So you look at how you spend your time. Now, if you're honest with the answers, they'll dovetail. There'll be a pattern already emerging because I spend my time teaching. I find time for it. I make time for it. I love doing it. So the thing that's highest on your value that you spontaneously are inspired to do, you find time, make time, and organize time for doing it. And people say, well, I can't seem to get around to doing it. It's not really important, or you would have structured a way of doing it. So when people say it's really important to me, but they're not doing it, they're saying that, but that's not true. What they say to themselves is a lie to themselves, because if it's really truly important to them, they navigate through the obstacles to find a way of making it happen. So the second thing is time. The third thing, and I ask people to answer 3 questions. What are the top 3 things you fill your space with, and what's its primary purpose? What are the top 3 things you spend your time on? And I've been doing this thousands of times, and there's a pattern that develops. The third one is energy. Whenever you're doing something that's really high in your value, your energy goes up. Whenever you're doing something low in your value, your energy goes down. Your reticular activating system and thalamus does that. So you automatically lower your energy or drain. If I was to ask you, look, I'm getting ready to do a program on how to redesign crankcases in motor cars and to show you how the oil moves through it, you would be going,
I'm like, thank you, but no thank you. I'd rather go and do a yoga class.
Right. But if I was to talk about enlightenment, inspiration, union, mastery of the mind, you'd be like awake 24 hours a day. You have full of energy. You'd go all day long.
Totally.
So what energizes you the most? What are the top 3 things that energize you? You always have energy for it. And when you're doing it, you have more energy at the end of it than when you started. That's the third one. The fourth one is your money. You find money, make money, and spend money on things that are valuable to you. But you don't spend money and don't want to spend money on things that aren't. Somebody can't sell you something that's not valuable to you. So you look at where your disbursements are. Where's most of your money going? Second most, third most. Most of my money goes into education. I build my company, money comes in, it goes into the company to teach. Then I look at carefully, it goes into investments because I had a value in investing and building wealth. But where your money goes, you used to buy 70 books a week. I used to read 70 books a week on average. And so all my money went to books. So if you look very carefully at where your money goes, it tells you again. And if you look at all 4 of those, space, time, energy, and money, there'll be a pattern, guaranteed. I've been doing it thousands of times. There's a pattern. It's already emerging. And it's pointing to what your life is demonstrating, not what you fantasize. And I assure you, most people have a fantasy about what it is instead of what it actually is. The fifth one is, where are you most ordered and organized? Where do you have the greatest degree of order and organization? I have no doubt that you have, in your podcast, you organize and make sure that everything's ready for the podcast, that you've got your studies of the people, you've got some background on them. You've organized and ordered it, plus all your knowledge in the study of metaphysics and philosophy and spirituality. You've got that in your mind clear, so you can just respond. But it might not be so great when it comes to the bank accounts or administrative stuff or fixing a car, or those are like, take care of that. Somebody else take care of that. So look at where you have the greatest degree of order and organization. That tells you what you value. The top 3 areas of the highest order in your life. The next one is, where are you most spontaneously disciplined? Where is it that nobody has to remind you to do it? I have no doubt no one would have to remind you to get on and do your podcast. No one, that's something priority. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So whatever's highest on your priority list is your highest value. And that's something you're disciplined, you're reliable, and you're focused on it. Your innermost dominant thought is integrally focused on it. The fifth, that's the 6th one. The 7th one is, what are you thinking about how you would love your life to look how you would love it to be, that shows evidence of coming true. Not what are you thinking about that's a fantasy that has no evidence, and not something that's not what you want that shows evidence, but what are you thinking about how you would love your life to be that does show evidence of coming true? Maybe it's not complete, but they're showing evidence. I've had a dream since I was 17 to travel the world. I've spoken in 194 countries now. I have evidence. Yes. Evidence to speak. So if you look at what your life shows evidence on and what you love doing and what it is that you think about most, that's an indication of what's valuable. The next one is, what are you visualizing about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence of coming true? The thinking is in the frontal cortex, a bit of the parietal cortex. The visual is in the occipital cortex. And the next one is, what are you internally dialoguing or affirming in your mind about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence coming true? And that's in the temporal cortex. So I'm looking at the gestalt of all those areas of the brain. Are they all lined up? Because if it is, then we know that it's important to you, because all those will show congruency. So I ask those questions. What are you thinking about, visualizing, internal dialoguing about how you would love your life to be that is showing evidence? Because if there's evidence, it means you're taking actions on it. You're not sitting in anxiety about it. You're moving forward on it. The next question is, what are you talking to people about most? And what do you keep wanting to bring the conversation to? And if you get to be in the conversation to it, you will dominate, take over, and be talking all night. Because if somebody comes up, let's say you're at a party and it's midnight and you're kind of looking at your watch, it's a bit boring, your time, it's winding down and you want to go home. And all of a sudden someone comes up and starts talking about the topic that is absolutely at the top of your list. You'll get in it, you'll be awakened, your reticular activating system comes on, you're awake, you can talk all night. Man, we'll have to get together again. Let's go to coffee or whatever. You're alive. Now you can't even sleep at night. You wake up and automatically have energy and consistently love talking about what is most important to you. So look at what you converse about and what is the things that when you get engaged in, you really enjoy conversations about. The next one is, what is it that inspires you and brings tears to your eyes? Because that's a moment of authenticity. And you know what I'm talking about, because I'm sure you've lived with it for years. That tear of inspiration that you know. And who are the people that inspire you most? Like I've been studying philosophers and Nobel Prize winners and great leaders and great thinkers. And whenever I read their biographies, I'm inspired by them, because that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to be a great teacher in the world, and I want to stand on their shoulders, kind of thing. So look at what it is that you're inspired by in your actions, and who the people that inspire you. What's the common threads? What brings a tear to your eye? I tell people to document every tear of gratitude they have and look at the content of their mind the moment it happens, and it will guide you on a mission in life. The next one is, what are the 3 most consistent, persistent goals that you have in your life that show incredible evidence of coming true that you do not give up on? Not the temporary whims, but the ones that you just don't give up on. You just keep making happen. And the last one, number 13, is, what is it you spontaneously love to fill your mind with, want to study, read, learn about, and watch on YouTube the most? What's the common thread? You probably don't read how engines are manufactured or how nuclear warheads are built, but you probably are interested in knowing every metaphysical teaching, every spiritual teaching, every yogic teaching, anything to do with mastery of light, mastering your existence on the planet, making a contribution to the world. You'll probably watch those all day long. That's example.
No, it's absolutely so true. Actually, you know what you're talking about is just so, I've got, goose pimples, because it's just how I've created my life, and it's taken something. It's absolutely taken something, because it's the challenges, I think, Dr. Demartini, are in the area of where you have been brought up and, what your family constellations are, what your cultural constellations are. And I found that, creating a life which is consistent to my personal values and being true to myself, meaning my higher self, has really been the journey. But at the same time, I do find that, and it's not just me, people I coach, and I'm sure you will have come across people who then have to confront what that means when it comes to their environment and the people in them, because it's not that everybody will understand, the choices you make. For example, the values. I mean, one of the values that I have very clearly, looking after my mom, for example, she's an elderly widow, and since my dad died, even before that, I was, that was the value that I had. Now, over the years, it's become stronger, and that means that my Belgian husband and I get to have 2 homes. That means that I stay near her, and we have this whole lifestyle, and which is incredible. We've just created this fantastic life. But people around may not necessarily see that. They may think it's a crazy way of living life and perhaps there's something wrong and so on. So how have you, what advice do you give, what counsel do you give to, when people are moving into a phase when they have the courage and they have the clarity and they lend themselves then to take action, to create the life that is consistent to them, but then they encounter these external challenges because people then have expectations of them as well?
Yeah, I love the question. First of all, our hierarchy of values are fingerprint specific, retinal pattern specific, voice print specific, snowflake specific. No two people have the same set of values. Everybody's going to walk through life and project their values onto everybody else. So your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister will all have slightly different values, and what they will show their love is trying to do whatever they think will help them fulfill their values, and they'll project it on it. So we're bombarded by a whole world projecting values. And then many of the classical injected values by society are on top of that. So there's a collective, as you said, a constellation, there's an individual family constellation that's basically imposing values on you. But I'd rather have the whole world against me than my own soul. And
so
to be clear,
you're a man after my own heart. I completely get it. If I'm the only one who gets it, that's good enough for me.
Well, the thing is if you're not being crucified, you're probably not on purpose.
Okay.
And to be great is to be misunderstood.
Interesting.
And the average person that walks an unborrowed vision will automatically be trying to be conformed by the people around them because it makes them have to look at their own life and why they're not moving forward on their own mission. So they're going to want to bring you, people automatically want to bring you back into the norm, back into the society. Ernest Becker said in his Denial of Death, we have a fear of death, he said. And as this fear of death comes with it, this search for immortality. And there's two paths of immortality: the individual path, the individual hero, or the collective society, fitting into society or standing out. But I found out in asking millions of people, millions, how many of you want to, make a difference? Everybody puts their hand up. But how are you going to make a difference fitting in? You're going to make a difference by standing out and being an unborrowed visionary and walk an authentic life where you have original ideas that contribute to the planet. First, you will be ridiculed. Then you'll be violently opposed until you become self-evident. And the world is going to test you. Are you really committed to a dream and to your mission? And if you are, they will rally around you once you pass it. I have to share this story. In 1973, I was driving to school with a buddy of mine. We were carpooling, and I was just in college, starting college. And he had a dream as an engineer that he was going to build magnetic trains. And he went on to build the great magnetic trains in the world. I had a dream of traveling the world and going to every country and being a teacher and a philosopher. Well, we were talking, we were sharing our dreams, and we were getting along, and we both had our clear dreams. We didn't judge each other for it. We loved each other for that. One day we had a guy in the back seat that we let drive with us, let get a carpool with us. And he was this son of this very wealthy family, and he was a little bit arrogant, a little bit cocky, assumed that he was going to be taken care of because his family was wealthy, and he was a little spoiled little kind of guy. And he was in the back seat, and we were talking about our dreams, and he said, yeah, sure, Demartini, you're going to work in the cotton gin. Come on, you're a high school dropout. You did this. You're talking pipe. Nobody leaves this small town of 9,000 it's 9,000 people. You're going to be in a cotton gin, or maybe at the Poly Ryan Hospital working as a janitor. Come on, be real. And he really slammed me, right? And there's a part of me that didn't want to hear that. But, my previous life was I was a high school dropout. I had learning problems. So what he was saying was what he had saw. So anyway, we didn't let him drive with us anymore. We didn't like him getting on our.
Good for you.
So we went about our life, and I went my path and kept pursuing my path. The other guy went his path, and he went on to build some of the most magnificent magnetic trains that are out there in this world today. He literally did. So about 2 years ago, during COVID, I was doing a live webinar. There were about 9,000 people on. And this guy sends this message over on a post in the chat. And my assistant, Clarissa, my director, saw it come in. And it said, is that Demartini guy that used to live in Richmond, Texas? And she sent it to me. And some guy just sent a thing in there and asked if you were the guy that lived in Richmond, Texas. I said, that's me. What's his name? And said the name. And I said, oh my God, that's the guy in the back seat. He's on the line. So I said, by this time you don't, you want to say hi to him and give him a hug, So I said, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you since 1973. How's it going? And he sends a reply back. I can't use the words that he said, but he said, "You friggin' did it. Great on you." In other words, the very person that ridiculed you turned out to be the guy that's sitting in the class honoring you. So if you have resistance, that's going to make you a diamond that's going to be polished into something that's glimmering.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is the reason why, isn't it, Dr. Demartini, where we have so fewer people following a life of their true values, being really listening, crafting their own path, because there is indeed a lot of resistance from the environment around us. And it does take courage, right? It takes courage, it takes commitment, and it takes a sheer brutal, like what we'd say in England, bloody-minded determination, Would you agree with that?
Well, my observation, the word courage comes from core, which comes from the heart. If you look at the etymology, it means heart. So the courage, you can walk on coals, you can do bungee jumps, you can do all kind of scary things, jump out of planes and stuff. But the courage to be yourself is more courageous than any of those. Those are metaphors. Sure. But being yourself is where the real courage is. Can you stand and walk the path of an unborrowed visionary yourself? That's courage. But if you master the art of being inclusive and studying enough about life and about people, see, I've been blessed to go to many countries. And each time I go there, I study the culture and I study the values and the objectives and the histories. And we sometimes start in this little narrow box about how it should be, ought to be. As Nietzsche said, it's an ought to and there's an is. And the way it is diverse. The way it ought to be is the little box we're in. It's like saying, well, the divine is in that little monoglottic state or that little location instead of it's the universe. So the more we start to open up and realize that each has an individual and every one of those are parts of us that we may not be loving. And if we can love it, we can encompass that. Then we will care enough about them to articulate respectfully what we're up to in terms of their values. And the very people that normally would give us resistance, as long as we're helping them fulfill what they would want, they open up the doors for us to fulfill it. So we are going to be criticized because we're not going to be able to meet everybody's needs because there's pairs of opposites out there. For every supporter, there's a challenger. But it doesn't mean we can't do our best to try to communicate respectfully in terms of as many people's values as possible and make the biggest contribution in people's values and honoring what their uniqueness is too. And that allows us to move through that, navigate through there without undue distress.
Yes, it completely resonates with me, that one, and I think, as you said earlier, that for some people, when you're truly listening, you're truly connected to that space of the heart, there is no other alternative in living your life. That the path that you must follow is the path that is calling you the loudest, and the loudest path usually calling you is the one that's aligned with the heart and soul, in a sense. So it's just, for me, there's no other way. I have to say, there's absolutely no other way. And even if it means doing crazy things, like when I listen to the inner voice, sometimes I get to go to places in the world, like yourself. I've traveled a lot, and get to be taken to places without knowing exactly what the purpose is, and I end up there, and then I end up meeting somebody, and then that next piece of the puzzle becomes available, and and the next one after that becomes available as a result of meeting that other person, and so on. So it just leads that idea of serendipity. But there is this paradox in a sense, where we listen to other people, and for example, take I don't know if you know, there's a guy called Gary Vee who's a massive entrepreneur. He's just prolific, this guy. Okay, now a lot of entrepreneurs I notice on social media and other places want to be something like him or someone similar to him. And what I find is that when you end up setting yourself those goals and visions, and they may not necessarily be because somebody else is doing something, you may very well be listening to your own self, your deeper self. But at the same time, when you set goals, sometimes there's a paradox of aiming versus allowing. How do you bridge that? So when you go goal oriented versus actually allowing the universe to actually deliver to you.
That's a great question. First of all, there's a difference between a fantasy and an objective. Imagine a magnet that's got a positive pole and a negative pole. In the Buddhism, they said the desire for that which is unobtainable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is a source of human suffering.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So if I said, here's a magnet, I'm going to give you $1 billion if you can give me only the positive pole without the negative pole. If you're ignorant, you'll chop it in half and try to give me the positive pole. Here it is. But now I got a positive, negative, and a positive, negative. I didn't get the positive pole. And I said, well, I didn't do it fast enough. And I chop it again. I got now 4 little magnets with positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. So ignorance is pursuing something that's not obtainable and trying to get rid of the unavoidable. And people who set goals that are fantasies, not goals that are true objectives, have a one-sided goal where they think they're going to get an advantage without the disadvantage, where they're going to get a reward without the risk, they're going to get a positive without the negative. And there's necessary to have both. So the second you do, your intuition brings up an anxiety, a self-doubt, an uncertainty, a question, and a hesitation, because it knows intuitively that's not obtainable. So we bang our head against the wall trying to get that which is unobtainable and set up a fantasy. And we eventually get enough frustration with that where we finally learn how to set a real goal, a true objective. Our executive center in the medial prefrontal cortex has neurofibers back into the amygdala to stop the amygdala from looking for fantasies and trying to avoid seeking praise and avoiding predators with impulses and instincts. And is trying to get real objectives with the executive center and calm those illusions down. The second you set a real objective, which is what the executive center is for, to transform fantasies into objectives, then you know that there's going to be positives and negatives in the pursuit. You anticipate what those challenges are going to be. They mitigate those risks. You have foresight. You imagine them. You solve them in advance. You prepare. You move forward. The anxiety doesn't show up. Because if you don't pursue challenges that inspire you, you're going to attract challenges that don't. If you don't pursue and solve problems in advance, you're going to be dealing with problems by default. So a real objective doesn't have all that anxiety. It doesn't have all that doubt. It has clarity because it's been planned and foresighted out, and you can see it in your mind's eye. You can't go to Mars as Elon Musk on a fantasy. You go there by thinking everything that could go wrong. What do we do to solve it? How do we prevent it? What do we design it with? What about radiation? What about gravitation? What about this? What happens if a meteor? What about cosmic storm shows up? Everything. And the more we think out of everything that could go, they could throw it off, and we anticipate, we plan it. We don't have anxiety. We have execution. That's why it's called the executive center. So people that set up fantasies and pursue immediate gratifying impulses live with anxieties, fears, doubts, uncertainties, phobias. But people who set real objectives with real plans, with real time frames, and mitigate the risk, go out and achieve something extraordinary. That's why we have a forebrain. We have a forebrain to use for a purpose.
So it's not because you find something difficult that you shouldn't pursue it. It's just that you need to take action to really find a way of solving all the problems that you're gonna come across.
It's going to test you. It's going to test you because if it's really important to you, that's what you'll do. You won't stop. If it's really important. See, the difference between failure and feedback is when you're pursuing something that's a fantasy, you see if it doesn't work out, it's failure, or you blame something. If you're really pursuing something, you look forward to the challenges because you refine it, you learn, and you go along. There's a gentleman here that lives on the ship here, there's a friend. He has 4,034 patents in his name. He's the most patented individual in the world. He's a very wealthy billionaire, and he's got 4,034 patents. And he says, and just to even put one patent out is a lot of work, let alone that many. And his work is in cars and in aerospace. I mean, he's an amazing guy, brilliant man, one of the most brilliant men on the earth. But what he does is he anticipates and plans out and uses his mind and foresees and spends his mind. Albert McKinsey in his Time Trap said that people who live in their executive function, they plan and they see things and they're out there in the mind, clear with abstraction, and then bring those plans down into reality, go way farther than people that impulsively go without thinking. We have systems 1 and systems 2 thinking. Systems 1 thinking is reacting before thinking, and systems 2 thinking is using reason before reacting. That takes us farther.
Beautiful. So everything you're saying sounds, it's for people who have a lot of energy, a lot of drive. It's not for the lazy people, is it?
Well, I don't think there is lazy people. I think there's people labeled lazy because they keep pursuing something that's not really that's important in their life. They end up being we automatically have procrastination, hesitation, and frustration whenever we're trying to pursue other people's dreams and not our own. The second we're on track and in tune and on target with what's true and authentic for us, our energy vitalizes and just takes off. I've seen that over and over again. We had a gentleman the other day, who's a Jewish gentleman that was in depression, and he's been 3 years in depression, taking medications. We cracked his fantasy and got clear about his objective. And the last 2 weeks since we've chatted with him, this guy's on fire. And there's no depression, because depression is a comparison of your current reality to a fantasy that you're pursuing and expecting something that's not going to happen. And people do that. They think, I mean, I had a girl after The Secret came out, when the movie The Secret came out, there's a lady that says, I watched the movie Dr. Demartini 20 times. And I read the book 6 times. And I went out to my mailbox every single day, and there's still no $1 million check. And I said, have you considered looking deep inside yourself for your talents and what you could contribute to people's lives and serve people? You increase the odds of the check coming in the mail.
Amazing. It's true. It's true. I think The Secret, and the law of attraction, etc. This is the reason I asked you the question. When it comes to setting goals versus allowing, I think there is a balance between the two. When you start to do something, then not to go. It's like when you sow a seed, then you do need to water the plant. You do need to make sure the fertilizer and everything that you need, the soil is right, the conditions are right. To plant that particular seed in the right place for that particular seed to grow well, as opposed to where it's going to get burnt out the moment it sees the sun and so on. So I think that's the thing about setting goals versus allowing, is that there is a balance to be had in I would call it working hand in hand with your destiny and with the universe. So you take action and your destiny comes to meet you. But
can I share something about it?
Sure.
When you infatuate with somebody and put them on a pedestal and minimize yourself, you inject their values. And almost anybody who's been in the first few weeks of a new relationship where they're both infatuated, they'll sacrifice what's important to them to be with them for fear of loss of them. And when they do, they're trying to now live in a fantasy that they can sustain that. It's not sustainable, because deep inside, every time you're sacrificing, you're building up a little unit of resentment going, I did this for him, 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 he owes me one. So anytime you try to live in their values, self-defeat, you have futility. And anytime you're self-righteous and looking down and giving them ultimatums, you need to do this or I'm out of here, you're expecting something that's not going to happen. So anytime you're imbalanced and exaggerating yourself with pride or minimizing yourself with shame, that's inauthentic. And so you get futility as a feedback to let you know that you're pursuing something that's not you. And anytime you're doing it, you're trying to impose your will onto the universe and trying to get it to be something it's not. And so every time you try to force it, then you think, well, I got to let go, and then allow nature to do it. But allowing nature to do it is just you going back to authenticity, and that's when the flow occurs again. So instead of trying to force somebody to live in your values or you trying to live in other people's values, if you honor people and communicate in their values what you value, you stay in that center where what you want and what you'd love to do matches what the design. Human will matches divine will when there's nothing to fix, nothing to change, something to honor. We search for enlightenment, but enlightenment's never missing. It's always around us.
It's always there. It's always there. It's a question of actually shifting your perspective and looking that way rather than that way. I was just going to say that actually what you've just described is the fulcrum. It's actually, how you become the point of attraction for what it is that you're wishing to create in your world.
Authenticity.
Authenticity, then action.
Because what's interesting, we have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system, one for challenge, one for support. When we get more supported, we activate more delta waves. We rest and digest. And we get more challenge, we get beta waves, more fight or flight. If we put those in perfect autonomic equilibrium, autonomic regulation, we get alpha theta waves. And once we get exactly that 8 cycle per second state, we get gamma synchronicity across the brain and a gestalt integration and a eureka moment, a tear of inspiration to let us know we're now authentic. And so our physiology, our symptoms, our sociological feedback, our relationship feedback, all the symptoms in our body are, every one of those symptoms, if they're interpreted wisely, are trying to get us back to authenticity, where we maximize our healing, maximize our effectiveness, maximize our sustainable fair exchange with people, maximize our mastery. So that's when we're in the flow. And then we have the spiritual experience as a confirmation. We get rewarded by a state of grace as a confirmation that we're now being authentic.
Absolutely love that. Love the explanation of how the various waves actually come together and create that condition for what we call grace. Because, when we talk about mysticism and we talk about all the things that we don't know, they suddenly are mystical. But in fact, what it is that we haven't quite figured out how something is working, how it's actually happening. And so that's why I think that the law of attraction and all of these systems, I mean, they're great, but you do need to really figure out how they operate in order that you can avail of them. Otherwise, like the lady said, I'm going to the post box every day and there's no million dollar check in there.
Well, everything we know, say when you infatuate with somebody, you don't know them. You're ignorant of the downsides. When you resent somebody, you don't know them. You're ignorant of the upsides. When you love them and see both sides and see them simultaneously and know that both are there and they both serve you, now you have grace. Grace is gracias. Some people confuse gratitude and grace. Gratitude is when somebody supports you and you go, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's kind of superficial. Grace is when you see the hidden order in the apparent chaos. And then you go, aha, I now realize the thing that challenged me is exactly on track. Thank you. And you have that grace state. And that is where the executive center, the executive function, and the grace function are the same, because they call the executive center sometimes the gratitude center. In the medial prefrontal cortex, according to Scientific American, October edition, 2022, there's a fantastic article on the seat of the self expressed with the integration and synchronicity in the brain, the forebrain. So our brain is not our mind, but the brain is a neural correlate of the mind, and it's showing us and revealing us physiologically when we're being true to ourselves. And there's a way of studying that. Anything that we don't know is still something we're judging. That's the mystery. Anything we really know is the thing that we make, that we love. So we keep growing in our love as we go through life and keep transforming a mystery into history.
And you've also described just now in what you've just said, the process to get into the flow, to kind of, get into the zone, as they call it. Just done a lot of research on flow state, by Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi and a whole bunch of other people that are working on this. I find that fascinating because for me, when I was writing my books, in fact, even the life journey that my own quest, anytime I have been in the right place at the right time, I've somehow managed to find getting in the flow. And I wanted to really ask myself, when I was writing my books, it just wasn't happening. It wasn't flowing until a moment when I had this playlist and I started listening to that music. I found a place. I said, I'm going to sit here at this time of the day, going to just see what happens. And then I found for the next 2 years, I didn't stop writing. And it was just amazing. And it felt incredible because I think what you described earlier regarding all the various, gamma, delta, all the various, the delta, beta, all the states of the mind, the waves, basically, they somehow synchronize and create that, what we call getting in the flow. And that's where, again, I found that you then become magnetic to what it is that you're seeking.
Because you've got both poles of the magnet now.
Yeah.
We lose our magnetism and demagnetize ourselves from the synchronicities of opportunities in life when we try to get a one-sided life. The pursuit of the one-sidedness is the source of the dividedness within us. But the flow state there's much confusion around the flow state. Many people confuse the ecstatic, manic episode of a high dopamine with the flow state. A flow state is poised, present, purposeful, patient, productive, prioritized, and powerful. It's different than manic ecstasies. And people sometimes get addicted to ecstasies and think that's the flow state. And they sometimes go off on tangents and then attract tragedies to get them back in balance again. I always say tragedy and comedy are those things that anybody that goes way into pride gets a tragedy to bring them down. Anybody goes way down into shame and gets a comedy to lift them up. And nature's way of bringing you back into the harmony of who you are is what life's about. And that's the flow state.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. I love the 5 P's that you just mentioned. Beautiful. I'm going to have to make a little blog on that one and refer you to it. So what about, just a last question for you, what about meditation? How does what role does meditation play in your life and in your process, if any?
The first time I formally meditated was 1972. It was November 18th, 1972, Sunset Recreation Hall on the North Shore of Oahu, Hawaii. I was living on the North Shore. I was a long-haired hippie surfer. and I took the class on meditation, alpha meditation, they called it. And that was the night I had my vision, my dream. So I've been meditating almost 51 years. November will be 51 years. I use it not as an escape, not as a dissociation, but as a tool of integration to help me find the divine order in every moment of my life. Mm-hmm. So in other words, if we label something and polarize it and label something good or bad, we polarized and we're not seeing the whole. When we transcend that label, meditation is to transcend the labels of those things and embrace the whole and to see both sides simultaneously in events. So some people use it as an escape, only to eventually find out that the thing they're trying to run away from keeps running into. But if you use it as an integrative tool, as it's designed to help you see the hidden order in the chaos transforms into love.
What kind of meditation do you do?
Well, people ask me that all the time. And I said, the best way to describe it is the Demartini meditation. I've studied probably 50 or 60 different types of meditation, from Indian mystics to you name it, yogi systems, breathing systems, neurophysiology, feedback systems. I mean, many of them. I use different ones for different times. If I have had very little sleep and I've got a presentation, I've had 2.5 hours sleep, I'll use an accelerated, sympathetic, activated breathing process in meditation to wake up the adrenaline to pull it off. If I am needing to go to rest and I've got a 4-hour flight and I'm landing and speaking somewhere, I will use a parasympathetic exhalation breathing mechanism to go and go into a deep delta state. If I'm doing it and I'm having a situation where I've got something preoccupy my mind, I'll go through and do a questioning process, an intuitive questioning process to be able to see the hidden order in it so I go into a meditative state. I use different meditation tools from all the ones I've learned, depending on the situation I'm in, without being attached to any.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. The reason is that, like yourself, I have also learned many different types of meditations. I interview a lot of gurus. In fact, 2 days ago, 2 days of Friday, in fact, I had the privilege of somebody, I was asked by this organization, the Brahma Kumaris, which are one of the, they have like 120 countries presence, and, they're very, very big. They have a beautiful meditation that they teach. And then I have my own Kriya Guru and so on. So I've done transcendental meditation, but I always, and I've made my own. I've got on my website, you'll see like about 100 different meditations that I've created, guided meditations, recorded them. And I just find that exactly what you just said, which is that for where you are on the given day, or intuitively, I find the right type of meditation gives it, makes itself present. And I was wondering whether I'm just, I'm just flirting with meditation.
You're a disobedient guru follower.
Well, I'm a meditation hoe or something. I don't know.
Well, I like I said, I studied many of them, and some of the meditation teachers were very aware and not attached. Others are very dogmatic. And when they were, there was a BS meter that would go off and go, okay, I'm going to use this as a tool. I'm not going to use this as subordination. I'm just going to use this as a tool. And I have taught people, and people always ask me, what's the right technique? And I said, there is no right technique. Right and wrong will block you. There is a technique, and there's many techniques, and use them wisely, and learn from all of them. I studied neurophysiology. I'm writing a textbook on neurology right now. I've studied brain physiology. I've studied respiratory physiology, heart and cardiology, all the different disciplines related to meditation and the impact it has on the body. They all have a place, and use them wisely.
Yeah, definitely. I also think that your own inner guru will actually guide you into what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your intuition, many people confuse intuition with gut impulse and instinct. Gut impulse and instinct is to protect you from a predator and to try to get you from not starving. It's a survival mentality. Your intuition is a homeostatic feedback system. We have what is called introception. And introception is the ability to get feedback from our internal physiology. And that's all the transmitters and signal molecules and all the hormones. They all have feedback systems back in the hypothalamus and the suprachiasmatic nucleus and into the brain, medial prefrontal cortex. And they're constantly doing everything they can, no matter what the perceptions of the world out there through your senses, trying to bring you back into homeostasis. If you're silent and listen to the intuitive system, those feedback systems will whisper to you and guide you right back into your authentic authentic self again. Your body is doing everything it can to help you maximize your full potential on planet Earth if you just allow it to guide you from within.
I'm so, it's like, honestly, this is music to my ears, because you know what, a lot of the systems that I've been studying, looking at, and I've really given them a very, very solid go. Well, at least in the Indian Vedic system, they say that, you know, unless you follow one system, you're likely to be doomed. I mean, you're not going to get moksha, you're not going to be liberated, you know, you're so, and I just think, okay, whatever, I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it.
That's good marketing for a particular guru.
It's true. It's very true. I really, really appreciate your feedback on this. And I'm really glad to know there's somebody else on the planet who had that experience, and that you do follow your own, you know, you do follow your own rhythm. And it's really nice to hear that. Well, why don't you tell us before we close a little bit about the Demartini method? I mean, we've obviously been talking about everything that we've talked about so far is likely to be included in that method, but just as a synopsis, how would you define the Demartini method that you teach?
The Demartini method is something I started pursuing the development of at age 18 after reading a book by Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz called The Discourse on Metaphysics. He said in the first few paragraphs, that there was a perfection in the universe, a divine perfection, a hidden order in life that few people ever get to know, but those that do, their lives are changed forever. And I got tears in my eyes, one of those authentic moments, and I wrote it down and I really contemplated that. And I said, well, there's a hidden order in the apparent chaos. But in physics, there's a thing called disorder and entropy, the tendency to go from order to disorder. But there's also life going from disorder to order. So I said, to maximize life, it's finding the hidden order in the disorder. Well, Claude Shannon said that disorder is nothing but missing information. It's the stuff we're unconscious of.
Beautiful. So Love that.
If we find the right questions to help us see what we're unconscious of, so we can become fully conscious each moment, we discover the hidden order and we have grace. So the Demartini method is a science of asking very, very precise questions that are intuitively driven to bring the mathematical abstract equation of symmetry, beauty, and elegance back into our awareness, to see that there's nothing but love, all else was illusion. So it's a science on how to take whatever you're going through, doesn't matter what it is. Any form of distress is simply an imbalanced perspective. Anytime we perceive a positive without a negative, we're going to fear the loss of it. Anytime we see a negative without a positive, we're going to fear the gain of it. The second we see both sides simultaneously, there's nothing to fear. There's something to be embraced. So it's a series of questions to help you balance out the equations of your mind, so you end up having the certainty of a balanced equation and mindfulness. So it's the science of what the mindful meditation leads to, but it's the science cognitively how to do it.
Beautiful. And how long does the method, how do you teach it? Is it over a weekend or a longer period?
Well, it depends. Some people get a little video I do on it. Most people come to the Breakthrough Experience, which is my signature program that I've taught 1,185 times.
Well, not that you're counting, but 1,185.
Well, I am counting because I like to do 2,000 of those presentations. They're a whole weekend. Maybe 2,000 weekends out of my life I've gotten the opportunity to give it. But yeah, it's a very powerful 25, 26 hours where we work together on taking whatever you're perceiving in the way and turning it on the way by asking questions and seeing, because, it's never what happens to it. It's our perception, decisions, and actions. So if we prioritize our perceptions and say, how is this helping us fulfill what we dream about? And what is the highest priority action to get it? And then which do I do first? You move forward and to do amazing things. So the Breakthrough Experience of the method is designed to help people master their lives. That's what I've been pursuing since I was 18 years old. How do you do that?
Very, very fascinating. Interesting. What strikes me about you, Dr. Demartini, is obviously your energy, but your clarity. And the fact that you were mentioning earlier that, or at least your colleague told me that you've been, 2 weeks in a row, you've been teaching every single day in different place probably. And I was just wondering, can you please share your secret? What do you do? How do you do it? What is your routine? Like, I don't just mean the physical. I mean, what do you eat? How does it work?
Well, right now I'm working on a textbook on neurology. I'll do a few podcasts today. I have some consulting today, and I do sometimes a webinar. Sometimes they're an hour, sometimes they're all day, sometimes they're 14 hours a day. Every day is different. Every time zone is different because I live on my ship and I'm sailing around and going to different time zones all over the world. We're going to Greenland, and we're going to Antarctica in Christmas time. We go all over the world on the ship. So depending on the time zone, I will do conferences in any part of the world. And so I don't have a time zone. I don't have a routine because I'm in different countries, sometimes 4 countries in one day, 4 different time zones. And so my routine, if there is a thing, is I drink water and vegetable juice. I don't live to eat. I eat to live. I eat to perform. So I don't put stuff in my body that's not going to maximize performance because I'm on performance every day. I'm doing what I love doing every day. And why would I want to jeopardize what I love doing? I eat fruit. I have a little bit of yogurt. I have some multigrain bread. I have some brown rice and vegetables, sometimes vegetables. I sometimes eat fish. I'm a simple eater. I don't have extravagant. I'm a simple eater. I only eat just allows me to maximize performance. I went for 4 hours sleep for 35 years, 4 hours sleep. Now I'm sleeping more. I'm 5.5, 6 hours now. As I turn in closer to 70, I sometimes have to get up in the middle of the night and relieve my bladder. If I drink too much water from working. I've been a pretty inspired, energized guy since I found my mission when I was 17. And I tell people, we have an extraordinary capacity to do extraordinary things. If we follow the principles that stand the test of time, we stand the test of time. If we stand on the shoulders of people that have left an immortal legacy on the planet, we'll do the same.
And do you exercise at all? Do you have any form of physical activity?
Yesterday I did 400 push-ups. 400, pretty good.
Amazing.
I'm trying to get to 1,000 push-ups. See if I can do 1,000 push-ups. But I'm right up at 400 now. And then I do butt lifts because, pardon me for being kind of blunt, but I was starting to notice when I looked in the mirror that there was an extra crease in the butt. And I said, that doesn't inspire me.
That's got to go.
So
You're talking my language, Dr. Demartini. You're talking my language.
I started doing butt lifts, and it plumped it right back up. I filled it back up. I didn't have to use a bicycle pump to plump my butt up. So I did that. So my butt's firm again. And then I do elliptical and I do some curls and I do some basic light stuff. Nothing extreme, but I do that just once a week. That's it. That's my little routine for it. And I do a lot of walking.
Totally incredible. Really, really fascinating conversation. And, I could carry on talking to you a lot longer, but I think we'll probably call it a day here. And I'll probably let you get off and walk around the ship before you have your next podcast, I guess.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun. And please, when you're in London, can we do a face-to-face in a studio?
Yes, thank you. I was just there. I was just in Greenwich and in London, just in Southampton, just about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago.
I know, and I missed you. That's when I reached out to you guys, and here we are. So, but next time when you're here, I'll stay on top of your schedule, and then we'll see if we can make something happen.
Very good.
Thank you so much. Thank you.